Welcome everyone to Tarot Journeys with Guy. How's everybody doing today? Hope you had a good weekend. Hope everything went smoothly and it was wonderful for you all. I had a pretty good weekend. I got a lot done. And here we are shooting more videos. Now, I had a good conversation with a friend of mine about the state of the world and about what's next. It's really about navigating truth and untruth. And as things become more and more exposed, the deep state, the other side of it, these globalists, the anti-humanists, let's call them, implement more of their agendas, especially in some of these areas that are maybe a little bit more disconnected from mainstream reality or bigger centers, let's say. And yeah, they're going into full sort of gear because a lot of them know, especially the ones that are sort of a little bit more in the know that they're not going to get away with implementing the agenda, let's say, and that they're going to, that they have a certain time period to sort of get all of this stuff out as much as they can. Right? And so I think that's what we're looking at here. This is the gear up towards a sort of an end game. Okay. Now, people want this to sort of happen sooner, maybe, than it's supposed to. I'm not really sure. This is what we were talking about. Is like a lot of patience is required. We need to sort of be in a very centered and connected place in order for us to go forth and to live our truth, to speak our truth, to act on this. Now, some of us are going out and speaking in front of city councils and school boards and public events and meetings and things, and it's having a big impact. And so what's needed is the encouragement, is to continue on, because it's a little daunting. Because just like I said, we go and address one thing and 5 other globalist agendas are slip in, okay? And these guys are not going to give up until the bitter end. I think this is what we have to sort of look at. And regardless of which way the tide turns, the awakened people, it's necessary for us to sort of be in that central place, in that centered place, in that grounded space, right? And so this is what we were talking about. And it's pretty exciting, actually. We're in extremely exciting times, and there's so much energy afoot. And yes, there's a lot of negative energy, but there's a lot of positive energy as well. And that's what we have to work with, and this, sort of like part of the reason for these elitist circles and the top wanting to come together and to create this fourth turning or the Great Reset is to preempt or to create their own shift, because they know that there is a natural energetic shift. There is a circumstance that human civilization is going through and will go through. And for people that have been studying this for a long time, they understand the circumstances and the cycles of history and of time and of energy, let's say. I'm coming from that energetic point of view, from that spiritual point of view. And that's kind of where I want to kind of stay with it, even though things are very politicized and we have no choice but to take part. And that's good. That's good. This is, I think, part of that Aquarian impulse of that energy of preparing us to move into the next world age, where that integration of the material and the spiritual world is needed. That we're not to sort of live one side or the other, right? And part of that is to clear up a lot of the fallacies and a lot of the misunderstandings and the false beliefs and the superstitions that have been passed on for countless ages. And in many ways, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of things coming up that do need to be addressed and resolved. And I mean, these things will become politicized, and it's just time for us all of us to sort of be active in our way and to activate in however that is. And very exciting. And in that way, it's very exciting. Okay, let's just jump into this. We're going to do a world read. We're going to just check out what is going on. What do we have to sort of look forward to in the week or the next couple of weeks? We'll do sort of this reading for the week. Okay. And if you hadn't seen my last video that I put out a couple of days ago, a zodiac reading, go check that out when you're done with this video. So everybody focus at home. Past, present, future, the spiritual. This is the spiritual side or the spiritual impulse, let's call it. And this is what's in the material world and what's the foundation. Okay. Now in the present, this is us in the present. Okay. Now with the wands, 9 of wands. Okay. Now nine is this number of cycles. Okay. And it actually is the preparation before the completion of a cycle. So it really talks about what we've gone through to get here. Right. And there's been all of these different things. And it's kind of like what I talked about in the beginning of the reading. Like we all are aware of this. There's been so much going on in the world. Right? Like it's just like one thing after the other, and they just keep throwing different things at us as the populace, as the people. Okay. And so that's us. We're kind of a little bit embattled, but this is also maybe like a rest, maybe, this is also a barricade. We've built something for ourselves to sort of buffet the world. Okay. That's important. That's super important. That's kind of like what we have to understand. Yeah. On let's just say our side. And that's the tough part. We're getting into this period where there is no real sides. And it does come down to whether you're living in the truth or your truth, or you're here to perpetuate the deception. And the deception has a motive and it has an aim. And a lot of times, like, people don't realize, like, yeah, they have all these kind of petty motives, but sometimes, right? And they aren't aware that how much of it is being sort of utilized, co-opted, and, like we're being used in their machination. And I mean, it is about creating a system of total control. And I mean, just look at the world circumstance and the world situation we've got now where, I don't want to go through everything, right? But it's like BlackRock and companies like that own a vast majority of the money in the world and properties. And, there's so many companies that own all of the media. And there's so many companies that are sort of in control of the pharmaceuticals right. And it's becoming this thing where they've coalesced into what's called, or it could be called an oligarchy, right? A group that is there to sort of rule, a ruling group, right? And that's what they've tried to do, is put themselves in a position where they're in a ruling situation without a democratic or what is in a free society. We didn't vote for them, right? So, but that's kind of what this is. Okay. So we're in this thing and it's coming to roost and coming to roost. Things are coming to the surface, man. People on a very everyday level. And I'm not talking like, it's becoming obvious. And we talked about this in the last reading, and we've been talking about this for a long time, but it really is. It's really starting to happen. And really, like, what they really are going to try to do is throw us off as much as they can, as much confusion. This card above it, the Queen of Pentacles, is especially reversed. When it's reversed like that, she's definitely ungrounded. She's a very grounded card. This is a very card that's not only connected with the intuition, but it's like connected with the physical world. But it's very intuitive. Her intuition is super keen. Okay. So when it's reversed and it's the material world. And so this is like, in some ways, this is our connection to like Mother Earth on that level, right? On a spiritual level, on a level of consciousness, our connections in the here and now, they are going to definitely try to throw us off and throw different things at us that are not necessarily important or real, right? And that's, man, and they've been doing this for a while, right? Like, the thing with the protesting in the States, okay, is definitely a machination of that. And what is actually coming to the surface now, and what people are starting to notice and what they've been reporting, but they're really starting to notice it with this, is that a lot of these protesters aren't students on these campuses in the United States and are paid protesters, paid activists. They're paid to be there. They're paid to organize it. And they're organized through these NGOs, non-government organizations, and charitable funds and trusts like the Open Foundation, the Soros Foundation. Okay. And this is coming out. This is coming out clear. It's hard to deny because, and there's all these interviews with some of these students and they have no idea what they're protesting. Right. And that's what I'm talking about. Even though that is, it has this great potential of like a very huge divide. In so many ways, it is a distraction. It is meant to demoralize and to create upheaval, but it's also there to distract so that they can implement other parts of their plans. And so meanwhile, they've been implementing and trying to pass all these crazy bills all over the world around censorship and like control of the internet. And that's the thing. It's the people's awareness around these things and their willingness and confidence to stand up and to speak out, but also to sort of, within the system, right? Right. And that's what's needed. They're trying to goad us on the other side to be conflictual and to cause problems. And so that's what they're doing. It's like a justification also to create a martial state, right? And that's like martial law. If it worked, right? But if you study history, you study the fall of any empire, study the revolutions, this is a very big part of it. This part of upheaval is part of it. This is what creates a downfall. This is society. It's controlled societal collapse. Okay. Them on the other side knowing this, the intelligence communities and these people, these guys that instigate this stuff, they see this and they see these popular movements that do happen organically and they try to mimic them, create cutouts, or they try to co-opt them. Okay. And I think this is what we're seeing with this scenario with the protesting in the States, right? There's a lot of stuff like that. There's lots of stuff like that. It's just, how real is a lot of this now? Especially now that it is coming to a head and they're not really fully getting away with everything. Yeah, that's a big one. And a lot of it's fear, right? There's like fear. And so it's so funny. Like the last time I did a reading for the channel, the two of Swords was in the central part. Now it's sort of sitting in the past. And this is kind of like, for us in the awakening, a lot of us have sort of come to a resolution within our being. We've developed a certain level of peace in order to take on some of this stuff or to see it more clearly, right? But that's what's needed to help people overcome the fear machine, the fear, the pumping out fear, like crazy amounts of fear, like they just put out that movie, Civil War, predictive programming. They did this a few months ago where they put out the trailer and it's like a leftist's dream, right? And it hits all of the woke points in the movie and stuff. And it's very racist, let's say, in a way of, creating division and, it's so obvious, like for people, but not everybody's getting it though. There is still quite a divide, but the thing is the commonality, one of the things, and I guess this is what it's talking about, our commonality is on the earth plane. So funny. A lot of the times I did a reading a while ago. guess it was for myself, right? But it was with another person. And it was kind of a simple question, like, what's my next step, or what's, like that kind of thing, give me guidance. And literally, like, because what we were doing, we were pulling, well, I won't say exactly, but it was like an oracle, and it was very specific, right? And it essentially said, your plight is the plight of the everyday human. And yeah, that makes sense, right? Because but that's just it. And so what is all of our plight? Well, all of our plight is like, we need to put bread and butter on the table. We need to look after our families. We care for people, right? Those are the commonalities, right? And those are the things that they're attacking at. Those are the things that they're trying to grab at. And so it's awareness that brings this to light. That's why they want us dumb. That's why they want us drugged up. That's why they want us fighting amongst ourselves, because there's no way of gathering what is real and what isn't. Okay. But that's the commonality. And that's what we are there to provide in some ways. If we're put into a situation, like I'm constantly put into situations where I'm not around anybody that is of like mind. Most people are like dead set against me. And I put myself in those situations. And I'm not talking about my personal life, like the people, like the people that are closest to me. That's different. Okay. But I'm talking about in my working world, out into the world, going out into the world, like we're not going to always be around the people that we see eye to eye with, right? But how do we conduct ourselves? And I've had to put everything sort of on that common denominator. And whether it doesn't matter if I'm homeless or not, and I'm not homeless, but that guy's plight that I somehow bump into on the street, I can relate. It doesn't matter if he can't relate to me. I can relate to his. That's what it's all about, right? And so, and like talking to people like, professionals, people that have been working for a long time and are very worried about the economy. Worried, really worried now. And they've lost money and don't know how they're going to pull it together. Things like that, right? And there's commonality there. And some of them even waking up to, oh my God, there really is this agenda. These people are really sort of in place. Like they're really pushing some of this stuff. Like they've woken up to it, right? So what do we do next? What's the next sort of step in that? And so that point of relation and that commonality. So like I talked to one person and they may not be so grounded. Maybe they're like, but maybe I'm grounded in my situation and how we're talking about it. And that helps him flip the card over or reverse the situation. And so that they can sort of enter into their true self, into the real seat of self and sort of assess what is actually going on and making the right steps. Like some of us really are being pushed into new areas, whether we like it or not. And it is for our best, that it is for our betterment, I guess, right? Especially what the Judgment card talks about. It is this revitalization, this coming to a new point, right? It's like the rebirth, really. And that's what maybe a lot of people, when they're so stuck in the grind, and I know I get in that way too, that's where the meditation and the spiritual like connection and grounding and the practice that I utilize helps with. It helps me get out of that mode of panic, worry, fear, right? And this is kind of what this talks about, right? So this is kind of what's happening. And I think people are actually accepting it and they're getting it, People are resilient, man. Like, it doesn't matter how down a person is. It's part of our divine, God-given nature to like pull through and to move past. And so it's about the human impulse, the continuation on. And so we all have our place in it, right? And I've always felt like that's a big part of my place, especially because I didn't take the normal course through human life, right? And I'm glad. Everything is exactly the way that it is sort of is supposed to be. I've accepted it though. And that's part of this thing, is getting into this acceptance. So that's kind of the acceptance of what is actually going on. Now, there is a lot of BS floating around about the money situation, and it has been for a very long time. People believe the craziest things. And like, what's real about any of this? You know, like, it's like, I don't know. It doesn't even, like, money doesn't even seem real, right? But this is how they've hooked us. If we could just see it primarily first as energy, and how energy requires that equal exchange, right? That's the greatest thing about being a reader. If you work with people one-on-one, it teaches you about that exchange, like where you have to be conscious of the exchange. Maybe that's where we're heading, in that Aquarian sort of impulse. Oh yeah, I know there are elements on the planet that want to literally convert your actions on the internet or on an app, on a device that's connected to some kind of brain chip or some kind of biochip, where it registers everything and converts your manipulations online on the digital world into actual energy and currency. Yeah, there is that as well. I'm not talking about that though. Talking about a shift in consciousness. And that really, if you study and get into the astrology of like the world ages and what the Aquarian age represents, that's one of the things that it talks about, is the transcendence factor. But it's not, I don't know if we can see it now. We are so caught in the material world. We're so caught up in that. And so, but it is an energy exchange, right? And I think that's an important thing. That's helped me actually a great deal, especially with the material world. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here. And that's why it tells me that even though things may not look that promising in certain areas right now, in fact, like something like this reading actually talks about how, yes, this is very promising. It really does depend on our attitude. It depends on our direction with it, right? Okay. So yeah, infighting. This is it's so funny. Infighting. This is a competition card though. 5 of Wands, right? So Wands, right, is the will and the fire and the creative energies, right? But there's a lot of infighting on both sides, but especially in their side of it, right? I kind of saw how this globalist cabal that came together, which on the top of the pyramid, it's not really that many. And those groups, there's not many of those groups, but I kind of saw how they broke apart. But even in the globalist camp, there's like a break within them. And it's almost like there's 5 groups now or something. I don't want to put a number on it, right? I kind of saw a higher number before, but I'm talking about the globalist circle, and especially in North America and what we're dealing with here, because it's might be a little different in different parts of the world now. These people, like these groups, have broken off. They're no longer in full agreement, right? So like in North America and the UK, like they're kind of part of a sort of a block, but yet they might be breaking off too, right? And what we've seen with the States and Israel and everything, now we're starting to really get like the sort of geopolitical scenario, right? Which hasn't always been so clear. I don't know, not to me, not in the way that it's become very clear, right? And that in itself there's this big division. And now they've been always trying to play the religious card, right? But that's a big part of it, right? But it's almost like they're breaking apart. That's kind of why they're losing. That's why we keep hearing they're losing, they're panicking. Well, come on, lose already. Like get on with it. Cause man, this is crazy, but this is kind of what we're seeing, right? And we may not really see the gift in this, but it is a good thing, because they will not be able to implement their plan. A house divided will not last. No, not at all. Okay, so, all right, and that's what we got to keep on track with. Yeah, and we were talking about some of these women that have come forth that are fighting the good fight, are bringing bringing the attention to the peoples. I guess too, like some of these women too are speaking out about how they're messing with women. That's another one, like how women, like, yeah, just how they're being used, right? How we're all being used, right? But it takes a type of person to bring that forward, right? Yeah, talking about the attacks on the family and the relationships and how all of that's being ruined, and people are noticing it. It's so noticeable now, right? So it's good. This is what's happening. And then, so the other thing is this, because especially in the Western world, we've made so much money off of war. Oh man. Oh, wow. In fact, it's a military industrial complex. There's a reason why that name has been floating around. Our economies have been based on it for so long. And it's one of these sore points that people don't want to fully admit to. They want to justify, and I'm pointing at this Chariot card because sometimes that can be a warring card, especially reversed. He is the spiritual warrior. He's the epitome of the spiritual warrior. He's the prime example of this guy. But yet it's this energy and the activation of the will to go in that direction, right? And so, yeah, talking to people about, like, some people aren't so keen on it. I mean, a lot of people don't want war, right? But when it comes to the nuts and bolts of how our society works, they don't want to talk about. Same thing with the green energy. That's another one. That's another nuts and bolts scenario, right? A lot of people don't want to accept that it doesn't work. They've bought right into the whole idea that we're doomed and we need to radically shift from the fossil fuel thing, and they refuse to see the information that's sort of present that tells otherwise, right? But they are getting it. They are getting it. That's the point. That is the whole point. And we can't stop. Like, this is seeking the new horizon, right? Seeking that horizon, seeking that new angle, right? We can't stop that. In fact, we have to kind of sort of be sort of in that position to, I guess, present that, or to sort of keep on that angle, right? And that's something that we'll see. But I mean, using kids, like using the adolescents, like the Greta Thunbergs and stuff like this, and destroying relationships and family, creating war, controlling, like this idea of a free market and how it's being so controlled and contrived, right? This is what's being addressed. And like, these prominent people, like some of these prominent women I'm talking about, and I guess this is what it's trying to show us, is keep our eyes on these people, because they're going to bring some information to the table, right? That's really important. But they're pointing these people out, like pointing the people out, pointing out the groups and the organizations, like point blank and with no holds barred. And I say, awesome, keep going, do it. Yes. See, and that's why this is like super encouraging, right? This is something that, yeah, we can't get too caught up in what they want us to perceive. We have to sort of be centered in ourselves to perceive what we choose. We are responsible for our worldview, not the world, not the state or doctors or these people. No. Right. And we have to present that to people. Like I've talked to a lot of people, and I assume that people get this stuff, and they don't. They really don't. They really don't get this stuff. And it's needed. Okay. So one more, let's see what else we need to hear. And we're going to close it off. So this card came up in the last reading, but it was the other way around, right? So this is sort of being offered something, but not seeing it correctly, or not being aware of it in some ways, right? And especially in what we were talking about, it's sort of, well, yeah, there is an opportunity to move past a lot of this stuff, right? But we have to realize that, especially from the past, many of us remember, especially in the Western world, what it was like. We lived in a situation where things were not passed over our head without us as the people having a say. Like, a vote. Okay. This is something that people have to talk about. There's so many things that are being sort of shoved at us without our say. So many things. And just the very fact of people talking about it, it helps, right? I've been trying to push a little bit because I know people are so resilient, and I know it's like that almost everywhere where most people don't want to talk about any of this stuff unless it gets serious. But guess what? It is serious. It's very serious. Okay. And so we have to. And in that way, they're not getting away with it, right? We'll see little tidbits, little areas where they do push the agenda and they do get away with little bits of it. But then there is the pushback because people, man, they really want nothing. Most people don't want anything to do with it. Yeah. And just the divide, like seeking to heal the divide, to not have this division, right? And this is what I'm saying. It's like getting down to basics, getting down to the common root, and like realize like, yeah, there's a massive gift being handed to us. So don't get caught by the distractions. Don't get caught by the latest thing right? Realize that the gift of this massive shift and my own personal shift is a big part of the shift in the world. And I have to go with this shift. Okay, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. That's it for now. So leave a like. Please leave a comment. I love all the comments. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And I hope to see you on the next one. Take care.